Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Alexa Crow. I'm the gift buyer here at An Unlikely Story bookstore and cafe in Plainville, Massachusetts. Before we get started, here are a couple technical tips. First, if you have any questions for the author, you can write them in the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. And if you'd like to buy Melissa's book, click the green button at the bottom of your screen and it will take you to our website. When you purchase Lifelines from An Unlikely Story, you're going to receive an autographed book plate as well from the author, and this is while supplies last. So this evening, I am delighted to introduce Melissa and Doug Bernstein, founders of the remarkable toy company Melissa and Doug. Way back in 1988, Melissa and Doug began their lifelong mission to provide a launch pad to ignite imagination and a sense of wonder in all children so they can discover themselves, their passion, and their purpose. During the last 30 plus years, Melissa has been the creative force and inspiration behind the hundreds of toys that have brought joy, creativity, and learning to children throughout the world. She has shared her passion for childhood imagination, education, entrepreneurship, and the power of play that have enlightened parents, teachers, and of course, kids. That shared journey has been a gift to so many, and now she shows us with gracefulness her sharing of a deeply personal journey as a survivor of existential anxiety and depression in the hope to help others find their path to meaning and inner peace. Melissa, Doug, we are grateful to have you with us this evening. Welcome.
So much for having us, Alexa, Cassie, An Unlikely Bookstore. So happy to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you. Yep, we are happy to be here. Stores like yours are where we began everything that we do. And in 1988, when we started with our toy company, it all began with the independent community shops all around. We began here in New England. Melissa and I live in Westport, Connecticut, and we traveled all over this area and working with stores such as yours. And we love what you do with community. That's so important. It's so important always, but especially important today. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. An Unlikely Story.
So Melissa, what an honor to be with you. Oh,
wow. Oh, hi, Doug. What are you doing here?
Wait a second. We just had dinner together a few minutes ago. So yes, this is a bit unusual. Melissa and I have been paired together here for a discussion, and I get to play the unlikely part of interviewer.
Yeah, this might be an unlikely story.
Wait, where are you going?
I'm like, I think I need to
you need space.
Yeah, I do. I need space to be able to look at you quizzically.
So it's really exciting for us to be here. And when I have the opportunity to ask Melissa questions, we don't rehearse anything at all that we do together. And we want to make this all very spontaneous and natural and organic, and hopefully to reveal some things for you folks listening and sharing this time with us tonight. Hopefully to introduce some new things that you may not have learned about Melissa already.
I might learn some new things about myself too. He always surprises me with his questions.
And we're going to be happy to take any questions that you have,
yes,
if I leave anything out, but I will try to cover as much as I can. So anyway, Melissa, so why don't we jump right in where we just left off there? How did this come from toys? You've been creating toys for 30 years, and then all of a sudden there's a book, and it's not just a book, it's a 600-page book, and it's full of verses and thousands of verses. And how and where was I when all this was going on? I don't remember you working on a book.
Well, for any of you who are creative and, you know, the types that creativity really just is your salvation and flows through you, you know, no matter what I create, it can channel into anything. And I think, toys, thank goodness, became one of the channels for 30 years, but I've always had many other channels for creativity. And the one that was my earliest was writing these verses that I started writing when I was when I could first write, and really became my lifelines in a life that could be at times very despairing.
And when you say lifeline, what is a lifeline?
That is a good question.
Oh, don't patronize me.
A lifeline was the name we came up with for these verses that I wrote, because they were lines of verse. But
let's tell everyone exactly how and where we came up with it, because let's really let them behind the curtain with us. I think that'll be fun. Okay.
So I had this book that was in me from my earliest recollection. And, we have 6 children together.
Yes, yes.
I had 6 C-sections.
Not 6 each, 6 total.
My children had a difficult time emerging for me. And I think this book had the most difficult time emerging. It was like the biggest product I ever gave birth to, because it was like.
And you did need to be sedated.
I kind of did. It was desperate to come out for, 5 decades. So when we were thinking about what to call this book and what to call what would ensue, which was the ecosystem, words are my everything, and I love double meanings more than anything. In everything we did, even in naming our toys at Melissa and Doug, we always look for double entendres. And we were walking at one of our favorite places in the world. It's a beautiful beach, and it's the most magical place. And
pink sand,
and I can close my eyes and go there. It's really.
Wish it were that easy.
I know, we haven't been there in a very long time, but we were walking, talking about names, and we were throwing out a whole bunch of things. And like any real epiphany, it hits you like a lightning bolt. And even though it was a sunshiny day, it was like whoosh, and it just came, and it was lifelines. Because lifelines really epitomized what these verses were. And these verses were going to be sort of the centerpiece of the book. And then it turns out that lifelines are anything in your life that helps support you in dark times and in good times. It's really becomes in our ecosystem now, lifelines are the practice you engage in to keep you steadfast in the face of life's ups and downs. So lifelines became this amazing metaphor for the lines of verse, the practice you engage in, and anything and anyone that supports you in your life.
So one of the things that I've heard you talk a lot about, which I think is most interesting, is that when you talk about when it is important to practice and develop and deploy your lifelines. And when I've heard you talk about that, I find that so interesting because it's counterintuitive. So talk a little bit about that. When is it most important to work and develop and practice your lifelines?
Good question, Doug. So,
Thank you, Melissa.
I ultimately took.
She just doesn't want any really hard questions. So she's trying to be really nice and very grateful for all of these questions, which are very easy for her so far. We're working into it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I can only imagine.
We've got a long ways to go.
So, gosh, ultimately to accept myself in totality, I had to take this really deep, dark journey within. And it went to some really dark caverns in my soul. And basically what I had to do, because I never did it throughout my life, is I had to finally accept that I am a full spectrum of emotion. Like if the spectrum is circular, throughout my life, I was only at the very top of the spectrum. I had one emotion. I was just fine all the time. I was just perfect shell, everything's great, shiny exterior, no emotion, no exhaustion, no sickness. It was just a robotic, perfect person. even though I really wasn't. I was just hiding everything else and denying it. But when I took that journey, I realized that I was a full spectrum, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And being an extremely highly sensitive person, that meant that my lows and my highs were going to be really extreme. So I knew that if I was going to truly allow and accept all these emotions, that I was going to have some really challenging days. Because although some days I wake up and I'm sort of, if the emotional spectrum, the middle is equanimous, some days I'm equanimous, or I'm even slightly higher. I wake up and I'm like, woohoo, let's start the day. It's going to be a great day. Other days I wake up and I don't know if any of you have had this, like the minute you are conscious that you're awake, you suddenly feel like this heaviness in you. And you know that something isn't quite right in there. And some days I wake up and I feel really low. And once I realized that accepting myself in totality actually didn't mean that every day was going to be bliss. I thought it did. That was really disappointing. And that I would still have this undulating cycle of ups and downs and ebbs and flows. I knew that my medicine had to be this deliberate and intentional practice each and every day. And I like metaphors, and it became this backpack of lifelines that I literally strap on every single morning. And I think about it like before my feet even touch the ground, I get it off of my nightstand. It's not real, and I strap it on, and all day I have to pull out those lifelines in order to remain or pull myself either up if I'm very low, or sometimes if I'm too high up there and I'm about to like soar off into the heavens and never come back, it grounds me when I'm either direction. And what I realized is this practice has to become so routine, so ingrained in my muscle memory, that on those days that I don't even want to get out of bed because I'm so low, it has to become just automatic. So I can say, okay, low day, going to pull out some more lifelines, and I just engage even more intently in the practice. So the practice has to be done every single day if you are like me, especially in the good times, because when things are good and shiny and we're feeling great, we don't want to do the practice. Like, who wants to do a practice?
You don't need to.
You don't need to. I'm feeling great. Like, I don't need a practice. But yes, the point with mental practice and mental wellness, just like exercise, is you don't need exercise every single day until you injure something and you realize the fact that your muscles were strong and bolstered helps you to heal and helps you not get that injury in the first place. The same is true with this. You need to prepare ahead of time so that when those dark days hit, you're ready and able to support yourself.
And we talk about that a lot, and we do compare it to physical fitness. And we often say, right, the time to strengthen your legs or strengthen your back, it's not the day you blow out your knee. It's in order to prevent blowing out your knee. And we talk about the same thing with mental fitness also, that it's important to begin the practice as early as you can, and then do it regularly. And maybe you don't get the reward because maybe you're thinking, well, I don't need that practice now. But then later the reward comes and it pays off.
Yeah, it's an investment.
One of the things that I like that you wrote on on our digital ecosystem is it's not about feeling better, it's about feeling everything. And that's a little bit what you were just talking about there. And it's so different than what we see other people talking about, because you and I have talked about this a lot, and there are many reasons why you wanted to do this, but one of the reasons is that you didn't like the fact that there's a lot of people, or there's a lot of places selling products that are saying this will make you better forever, and you feel very differently than that. So talk a little bit about that, because your approach to this is very different than others.
It is, and in that, it's, I think, very disappointing to many, because I get lots of letters, and some of them every single day say, thank goodness I helped you. Thank goodness I found you. You need to help me. I need your help, and show me you know, what to do. Show me exactly what you did. Show me the path. You know, you'll be my savior. Sort of this sense that they want me to save them. And I feel like a lot of folks, including myself, you know, I spent a lifetime kind of racing outside myself, and I call it the feudal race, for the answer. And I think we all tend to want to do that because it's a lot easier. And, you know, doing the work of going inward and doing the work of actually going from living an inauthentic life to an authentic life is so arduous. And it takes that practice, it takes a deep dive, it takes unearthing like all the paradoxes of life, and it takes going back and really coming to terms with a lot of like traumas and a lot of misperceptions, and it's a lot of work. And you have to face a lot of that anxiety and traverse it, not go around it or underneath it. The only way out is through. But I think many of us want to avoid that work as long as we can. So what do? We race everywhere else looking for the answer. And I did that for a long, long time until I realized that I was exhausted and I was no closer to finding that sense of meaning in my soul. So anyone will tell you, any of the wisest spiritual leaders, the philosophers, everyone will say the seeds of salvation are in your own soul. And the only way you find them is to go there. And unfortunately, it's a solo journey. Like any, you know, hero's journey, it's a solo journey. Others can like shine their light on it. They can hopefully spark your desire to do it. They can offer you like support and encouragement. You can do it. But can they take the journey for you? Nope. And it's a little bit of tough love, unfortunately, in the end. And it was for me too. You know, I wanted to wallow for a while. I blamed, I shamed, and I said, I can't. But I can't is just, I won't, is just, I will not, because I'm too terrified of the anguish. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to not want to do the work. It's fine to say, I can't do the work. But I think I just want people to know that if they say that, it's their choice. And they can just as likely choose the next day to make the choice to do the work. So it's not a permanent choice. It's often a choice that takes a long time to make. It took me till midlife, and many of us, it takes till midlife, till the pain of living inauthentically is so great, or the cry of their own soul to be true gets so loud that they can't avoid it any longer. And you know, I wrote a verse once, which is, the only way we'll ever find contentment or true bliss is to say it's now or never and jump into the abyss. And it's kind of like that's what I did. I was like, you know what? I'm not getting there racing out there. Like, it's now or never. I'm doing it. And I never looked back.
So listening to this, and someone listening in might say, boy, Melissa loves to speak in public. And she is clearly an extrovert who loves loves
How do you know me so
loves the
well?
spotlight. 30 years, you get to know someone.
35.
And well, those first 5 were a long time ago. But the truth is that Melissa is not. She doesn't like to be out there. And Melissa's the one that when we go to our son's Little League games, Melissa's the one who's sitting out there in right field somewhere behind a tree where no one could see her. And she's probably writing a verse about why didn't her son swing at that pitch. So that's Melissa at the baseball games. And it raises an interesting question because, so backing up, you spent many years, you created 10,000 toys in round numbers. You've sold them in countries all over the world, billions, literally billions of dollars of toys. And you have so many things you could be doing today. And if I had asked you years ago, what would you want to be doing today? It wouldn't be speaking with a lot of people about things that are very personal to you. So I think that's really interesting. So share, why is it? What is it that was so compelling that it drove you to overcome? Are you squirming? That drove you to overcome your concerns and fears about putting yourself out there. It must have been big.
Yeah, I'd say. Wow.
I'm coming for you, Cayman. I'm coming for Cayman's job.
Oh gosh, he's ready. I'm sure he's willing to take you on. I think, many folks who are creative, and I write a lot about this in my verses, that I never spoke through my mouth. I always spoke through my hand, because I never felt like people heard me. And it was better to be quiet than to risk rejection and not being seen or not being understood in the way I intended. And I never felt like people understood me. And I always felt like when I was young, I would say something and people would always take it the wrong way. And I would be like, no, that's not what I meant at all. And it would be too late. And after a while, you're just like, and thank goodness I can create. So I was able to voice everything I felt through my verses. But there is a book I've read that is The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret of those on their deathbed is, I never lived a life true to myself. So I was, in a sense, living a life true to myself, because I was creating and I was taking all that despair and channeling it into toys and finding tremendous meaning from that. However, as I got older, that cry, getting older, that cry of my soul to be seen authentically was getting louder and louder, because I felt like I was creating these beautiful, light, bright toys that were allowing kids to play. And the person who created them did it out of so much like darkness. And I felt like I was hiding behind that, and I would never truly be seen and find my people and really be able to feel that liberation of showing exactly who created those toys. And that, I've suffered with this deep, dark despair, yet had channeled that into light. And I felt so compelled to show others that they weren't alone. I felt so compelled to show other creatives who create such beautiful masterpieces, yet are stigmatized by society for the very qualities that make them artistic and creative. And I just felt like it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair that people like me who create are so stigmatized for the people we are. And I just wanted to help others not feel so alone. I wanted to show others that you can strive your whole life for the American dream and for the external measures of success and get them, and still not feel fulfilled if you haven't truly accepted who you are. And I also wanted to show that people, or many people, can have an affliction. I have a condition I was born with, and I will end my life with it. It doesn't go away. It's existential depression. I manage it. But if I get in my head for any length of time, I go straight down there. It's really dark in my head. So, but I do manage it. And I am rabid about managing it, because I want to live a bountiful life, and I want to, bring a lot of people joy and enjoy the moments with my family. But it doesn't mean that every day is blissful. So I want to show people that I am living with a mental condition and managing it, and still leading a bountiful, successful, joy-filled life. But it doesn't mean every day is perfect.
So two interesting things to come out of that. One is, and we talk about it all the time, the whole concept of the stigma that follows around, which is slowly being peeled back. And as we know, it's probably might be the single largest reason why you and I are doing this.
Yes.
And even for myself, I do find it somewhat interesting when people talk with me and they say, as if a big secret is about to, they say, did you know that your wife had depression? And I almost feel like my answer would be like, what? Oh my goodness. How can it be? And it almost as if like, would someone ever come to me and say, we saw your wife the other day and she was limping as if she had hurt her ankle a little bit. Were you aware of that? And I always find it really interesting. I'm like, yeah, and that changes what? Because as you said, it's one part of the multi-dimension of a person. It's one part of the entire spectrum of a person. And I think that's something that's so important because, and I think that this is what we're trying to help with, is to make it so that we can bring it a little bit more into the public conversation and have it be a little bit more accepted so that it's not something that people feel that they need to be hiding from. The other interesting thing from what you just said, by the way, there's someone here that's trying to get a little bit of TV time. So, hello, hey everyone. Sorry, just had to do that. He wanted it.
It's our furry. We have three furry lifelines.
One of our lifelines.
And none of the furry ones are our kids.
The other interesting thing is that I think people find it really interesting. You know, even as we're having this discussion now, you could see where people would say, well, where's the person that has the depression? And that's something that you talk about a lot because your answer, and you should share your answer in your own words, but when we talk about it is that, as we've said, it's part of the whole spectrum. It's part of, there's so many parts of you, and that's just one dimension. And it doesn't mean that you can't be having times when you're enjoying life more than anything. And the other thing I think that's helpful for people to know is that you have been very, very deep in the abyss of pain, and you would point to your practice that has been so important to you as being something that has helped you so much and something that's meant so much to you that you now want to go out there and share it with others so that others can share the journey. And you've even documented your journey on our digital ecosystem for the sole purpose that others can take that same journey that you have. And I should add that when people do experience that journey, it's not paid for, it's free. It's something that you put out there. You are in a position where you're able to put that out there, and you put it out there solely so that others can share some of the learnings that you've had in your journey. So
wow, there was a lot there. There's a lot to unpack there. That went from stigma to journey. Wait, I wanted to talk about the stigma because, you know, one of the reasons I didn't come out for so long about this was because I felt a lot of shame. And, you know, one of our workshops on lifelines.com recently was, I don't deserve to be depressed. And I think many of us who feel like we have everything have this big shame around like, well, I shouldn't be depressed. Like, and people would look at me and still look at me. And I get probably 1 out of every 50 letters is, who are you to be depressed? Like, give me a break, Melissa. You have everything. Like, I'll give, you know, I'm someone who should be depressed, not you. And, you know, I love those letters because I think that's the stigma, right? And that's what I've faced. And everyone faces their own form of stigma. But what I write every one of them who says that is I say, depression doesn't discriminate. Like, I was born with this. And the fact that I've, you know, achieved the external measures of validation doesn't make something chemical.
Can I pop in on that?
Yeah.
It's interesting because so many people said to us and to you and to both of us at the beginning of this that it's going to be really hard for you to get your message out there, and you might want to reconsider doing this because so many people are going to point to everything that you have, and they're going to point to all this and your beautiful homes and your beautiful business and family and everything. And you might want to reconsider because of all that. And you said that, no. In fact, that's the exact reason why you have to do this, because it actually makes your message that much more powerful. And you said that is the exact reason you have to. It's not something you would choose to. You felt like you had to do this.
Yeah, I think, I want to dispel a lot of these societal myths that leave us feeling inadequate and unworthy our whole lives. And I think one of them is that when you achieve these external measures of success, life is bliss. And if I could dispel that for everyone, maybe early on, then maybe they'd work harder on going inward and really creating meaning from those seeds of self-expression in their souls, as opposed to looking outward at what society thinks is right. And truly, again, meaning is created alone and by going inward. So I think, that's what I certainly want to show. It doesn't mean it doesn't make your life more comfortable. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. And I've certainly gotten joy out of material rewards, but has it brought me fulfillment, meaning, that deep sense of purpose I've been looking for? Absolutely not. And I think, what else were we talking about? The journey?
Oh, we talked a lot. It was packed.
Yeah, it really was. What else did you? What else was in there? Something about
the journey that you created that people can experience on the digital ecosystem at lifelines.com.
Yeah, the journey that I ultimately took. So when I finally got to the point where, the pain I was experiencing, the resistance to the pain, because I was denying it, like I was working so hard to deny everything I was feeling and everything that made me a creative person. Ultimately, it created such suffering in me. And as I got older, and I would say I got weaker, I got more exhausted and I got weaker of just resisting it all. I started to crack. And I finally, thank goodness, truly cracked and basically surrendered and said, like, I can't do it alone anymore. I'm imperfect. I need help. And I knew so strongly that I needed to take that journey inward. Yet I was terrified because I knew at the core of my soul was that existential despair that I had run away from my whole life. It was like that deep, dark nothingness. So I went on that journey with my therapist, and it was so revelatory in the end. It was very dark and very light, and it was everything. And it brought me to a place where I could truly accept myself for the very first time. And the feeling was so liberating that I wanted to bring it to reality for so many others who are terrified of making that journey inward also. And it became another metaphor, a hike, and called the hike to inner space, because my goal my whole life was to create space between my head and my heart. I've been in this eternal battle between my head and my heart. My head is very punishing. It tells me a lot of lies. It's like this prison of despair. And my heart just is pure and innocent and just wants to rage freely. So what we're doing on the journey is we're creating space between the two.
So since we are enjoying our time with a bookstore and a bookstore community, the only thing we haven't talked about is the book.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm thinking, instead of usual questions about a book, I will ask this question.
Let's hear it.
All right.
Are you saying I haven't heard this before?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
when you were putting your book together and word was starting to get out there about your book, we heard from all the top editors, all the top agents, all the top publishers. Everyone was so interested in your book and in working with you to put your book out there. So why don't you share who you ended up selecting to publish your book and why.
I guess I would say Doug.
Well, no, I wasn't looking for that. That made it a self-serving question.
It was.
It wasn't a self-serving question.
I thought it was a rhetorical
chose
question.
ourselves. Melissa self-published the book. And the reason is, and we talked about this so many times, as you were looking at all the various proposals, and you said, I can't let a single word in this book be changed. Every single word in this book has to be,
except for the 300 pages I had to cut out of
my
it.
very own. Well, that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, right. The book is 637 pages, which is, that is the shortened version, because it was 900 pages, and that's what it was until the UPS person said that she was unable to carry it.
Yeah.
But that is important. I think you should say something about that and why it was so important to you that you wanted each and every one of these words. You didn't want them to be varnished by someone. You didn't want them to be polished. You didn't want them to be, you didn't want to be told they were too honest, which some people said to you, or too authentic. What is too authentic? So that's what was on your mind a lot. And you finally said, no, we're going to do whatever it takes. And we are going to do this on our own.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you have a story to tell and you want to tell it in your own words, and you don't want those words to be edited or changed by anyone, and you don't want it to be a self-help book, because again, I know that we can only help ourselves. And I didn't even know what my own pathway was until after I wrote the book. I surely wasn't able to show anyone theirs. So I think, I wanted to just share my vulnerability in hopes that it would encourage others to share their own. And, I talked with many others who wanted me to submit outlines, who wanted me to craft it in a certain way so that it would be a bestseller. And I didn't care about that. Like, that was and that was the funny thing. We joked, we said, why didn't they ask me if I wanted it to be a bestseller? Because that was the last thing I cared about. Like, all I wanted that book to do was touch those who need it the most. And I knew it wouldn't touch everyone, but I knew that those who had experienced exactly what I had would feel it and would say it truly touched them. And that's all I cared about. I wanted it to touch a few people a lot, not a lot of people a little. And that kind of made us do the same thing we did with Melissa and Doug. We went through the exact same exercise. We kind of bucked convention. We decided to distribute our toys on our own. And in the end, it proved out to be the right way. And
you know what though, and the letters that you get, it's truly remarkable. And there's nothing that I don't think could ever have said to you more meaningfully what it is that you've done than some of the letters and some of the people who have reached out and have said things to you like, I've never thought that there was someone else that could have felt the way that I felt, or could have experienced some of the things that I've experienced. And that is what you wanted to do. You wanted to touch people in an incredibly honest and incredibly authentic and in an incredibly meaningful way. So it's been a real pleasure being with you tonight, Melissa.
Yeah, I guess I'll be seeing you in about a few minutes.
So
questions, right?
Thank you again. And yes, and for all the questions that I failed to ask, we will turn it over to you at this point.
Alexa?
Yes. We do have a few questions. Thank you so much. The first one from Rosemary is for both Melissa and Doug. What would you say are the 3 to 4 pillars of your relationship that helped you build a hugely successful business and navigate the challenges of living authentically, including the challenges that got you there?
You want to answer that, or I can?
Lead the way.
No, you can. Go for it.
I think first and most importantly is that we've always had tremendous respect for each other, affection for each other. We've always had absolute honesty with each other, always incredibly open, always communicate a lot. And, even if you go back to the beginning of Melissa and Doug, the people, our very first date really foreshadowed it. Don't worry. Our very first date was a 6-hour phone date. And what an incredible way to really get to know someone and to really find out, deeply what is a person really about, deep inside. So I think for Melissa and myself, we've always had that every step of the way. And from that very first phone call, we've been together every day since then. And we've done a lot of amazingly great things together. We've had a lot of amazingly wonderful times together.
Oh, that is so sweet. Yeah, and I think if you look at a circle, we're pretty good in that we both are two halves of the circle. And it doesn't mean we don't have skills that could be in the other half, but I think we really
should see my poetry. I'm telling you, when it gets a chance to get out there, I'll put mine against yours.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, I think we can see just the depth and just the beautiful
depth of your poetry. Just listen to the way he speaks. He is so poetic.
I do write her poems a few times a year on special occasions, and she usually looks at it and kind of rolls her eyes a little bit.
I do not. That sounds like I'm a horrible critical
like that person from UConn did to you. My book of poetry is coming.
Bring it on.
We will look for it. So Randy asks, how long did it take you to feel through painful emotions, to go through the emotion and not to try to go around before you see a light? Was it sudden or over the course of your lifetime?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, well, first of all, I didn't feel any emotion until I decided to start doing the inner work. So I was middle age. I was like 49 years old. And then the journey has taken me, honestly, the first time through, and by the way, the journey never ends if you're evolving. The first time of the journey took me over 4 years. So that's how long it took me to be able to learn how to feel, because I didn't even know how to feel. And the hardest part of it has been to allow my emotions and not judge them. So any of you who've been through like the therapeutic process, judgmental awareness is the thing that gets all of us. It's you're aware of your feelings, but you're judging them like crazy. And when you judge your feelings, you're not accepting them and you're not allowing who you are. So for me, part of my everyday practice, even today, is 2 parts of the journey. It's allowing my feelings, no matter what I'm feeling, if it's anger, if it's bitterness, if it's, it's the dark ones that I don't allow, jealousy, which I feel like everybody feels every day. And then it's offering myself compassion for being human. So when I make a mistake, when I mess something up with my kids, when I say something wrong, instead of going into the what is wrong with you, Melissa, it's you're human. You're not going to be perfect. You're imperfectly human, and that's okay.
And I would say that the complementary part of that for me, as supporting Melissa in this, is very similar. And it's very complementary because even in our business relationship together, in the business we have, Melissa's always been on the creative side, and I'm the problem solver. I'm the person that comes in, identifies the operational issues, and I fix them up. And so, of course, for me with Melissa, my first inclination always was, okay, wait, there's something going on today. We have to fix this and talk to me. What's wrong? The common question: what's wrong? What's the matter? And it finally came to me that was the worst thing that I could possibly be doing, and the best thing that I could be doing. And everyone who's joining us tonight in this wonderful discussion can share this with those who are around them and with their friends and their partners and their spouses and whomever it is, but share the fact that what you need more than anything, and what I've learned more than anything, is that I just have to be able to say, I love you and I support you. And when you need your space, you have your space, and you can work through what you're working through. And I'm going to be here before, during, and after. And sometimes that's the best help that we could give.
That's great. I guess we have time now for one more question. And I'm not sure who's asking it, but the question is, what kind of therapist did you work with?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, she's really just a therapist who did a lot of CBT with me, cognitive behavioral therapy. And for me, you know, I was so ready to do the work, and I really needed, more than anything, to talk through it all. I needed someone who would like listen to me, help me go backward and understand why I was so triggered, why I had all these unresolved issues, and really do talk therapy with me to get me to understand, because I needed to comprehend the why. And it was beautiful. In fact, you know, we have such an amazing relationship that when I took that journey that I took and translated it into this online journey that everybody can take, she is the one that made sure it was therapeutically sound. So, and you know, the other thing that was really important, I mean, I got it right on the first try because she came so highly recommended to me from others. But one of the things that was most critical to me was that she had been to the dark place where I was going. Because I find in hearing other people's experiences that there are therapists out there who haven't done the work themselves. And I think, you know, it depends on what your issue is. If it's a crisis in your life that you just need a few skills to get over, that might be fine. But for me, I was going to such a dark place that if my therapist hadn't been there herself and known that it's okay to go that low and that you can come back up, I never would have been able to go there. And I think I never would have been able to do that work.
But Melissa's too humble to say this, so I will add this. Yes, awesome therapist, but it takes two. And Melissa really walked into this very committed, and very much wanting to work through this and to push through this and to get to the other side of this. Yeah. And I think that's important to share with everyone, because the truth is, as amazing,
can't do the work for you.
Correct. And you talk about that all the time. It's part of your whole thing is there's not an easy answer anywhere, but like physical fitness, if you want this, you want this more than anything, if you walk into it, which is what you did, and if you have the confidence, and that's something I hope that Melissa's message can help share with others also, and help give others the confidence and the hope to take this journey and to fight for this journey, because it is a fight and it's not easy. And for me personally, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see you inspiring others to want this more than anything, and to work at it.
Yeah, and I will say though, the one thing that she gave me that I don't know if anyone else could have, and it was the most important thing, was when I was at that lowest point, and it was as low as I've ever been. She did say to me, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here." And those words were like the best thing I could have ever heard, because I was always terrified of going to that deep, dark place, because I knew, no one could be there with me. It was that dark and I was terrified of it. And the fact that she didn't leave and she was like, "I'm there." And I was able to stare that, that existential nothingness in the eye and know that it is a part of me. It's not all of me anymore. It's a small part of me, not a part that I like to visit very often, but it is a part of me that I needed to accept in order to be okay, that was, irreplaceable. And whenever I talk to her about it, I get emotional because it really, it was such a gift. And I do think very few people could have done that. And she, by the way, she is coming on lifelines.com tomorrow night to tell her story, which is, I think, also unprecedented, that my own therapist, who I'm still working with, and hopefully I'll always be working with, she 2 times this month for Mental Health Awareness Month, she's joining us to, one, tomorrow night, tell her story, which is a story. It's called Lost and Found. And then the second time, we're going to talk about the practice that she helped me to develop, and how I fell off the wagon, not doing my practice. And she had to pull me back on and convince me that this is my medicine and I have to do it every single day of my life. So there you go.
Well, thank you so much, both Doug, Melissa. I think what you have shared tonight is just so meaningful to so many people, and that you're continuing to share it on your website and through Lifelines. And it's,
I think Doug has a new career. He needs to teach other men how to be supportive spouse.
Yes,
there
this
you
was
go.
a comment and I totally agree with that. It's great.
Well, he's doing a workshop. He's also doing, again, all our workshops are free, so we're only promoting them but he is doing a workshop this month on how to support your existentially depressed spouse. No, not quite that, but how to just support anybody in your milieu who is afflicted.
I will have my husband tune in. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. If you'd like
before you guys sign off, there's a couple images that I know Melissa wanted to share.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Melissa,
yeah,
can you see my screen?
I can see it, definitely. So I think if anyone wants to join our ecosystem, it's just peer-to-peer support. We're not professionals, but we do have an incredible community, and we do have some really vibrant workshops talking about a lot of topics no one talks about, and we have a lot of fun. And I would say we have a really beautiful group, and we have a private Facebook group, if those, which many people in it have never believed in social media until this group. So I think it's a really warm group and very soulful. And if anyone would like to reach out to me, I do answer all my emails personally, and I'm Melissa Bernstein at lifelines.com. So feel free to reach out about anything. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. We believe that mental health awareness should be every single day of the year, but hey, we'll certainly make it a big deal this month. And we have a big calendar of events. You can see that if you go on Lifelines, you'll see all the things we're doing. And each day we have 1 or 2 events, which is a big deal for the small team we are. So we hope you'll join us and join our warm, vibrant community.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. If you'd like to buy Melissa's book, click on the green button at the bottom of the screen. And remember, when you purchase Lifelines from an Unlikely Story, you'll receive the autographed book plate as well. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Doug. It was really simply a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Yay!
And
thank you, everyone.
Supporting an Unlikely Story and Lifeline.
Thank you.